Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
Located at 109 Wall Boulevard in Gretna, Uniforms by Logo Express provides school uniforms, medical wear, hospitality wear, safety and industrial wear, and so much more. We offer a number of locations on both sides of the river. 2 in Chantilly, 1 in Woodmere, and our main store located in Gretna. Uniforms by Logo Express. Your brand starts here.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening, New Orleans, and happy holidays to everybody out there. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Joyeux Noel, whatever you celebrate, and we just wish everybody out there will have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as well. Hey, well, the Saints gave us a little bit of a Christmas present. It might be too little too late. You never seem to know what you're going to get from this Jekyll and Hyde team after throwing 0 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in the previous 2 games. Drew Brees flipped that script around and reminded us who he is. 4 touchdowns, nearly 400 yards passing in a 48-41 win over the Arizona Cardinals. The playoff hopes are slim, but we'll get into all that because I have 2 of my favorites, WDSU's Fletcher Mackel and WWL's Lyons Yellin. We're going to get into the Saints, the future of maybe the coaching staff and the players, and their slim playoff chances as well. We're also going to talk LSU and the situation with Leonard Fournette sitting out, and now it's Christian McCaffrey at Stanford, and what's going to happen after that. Hey, also, we're going to get into some other stuff with head coach Willie Fritz. The head coach for the Tulane Green Wave is joining me on the show this afternoon or this evening, and I can't wait to talk to him. And I've got the entertainment part covered as well on this show. It's sports and entertainment because I have Paul McGoey from Legacy Kitchen, formerly of Commander's Palace and Palace Cafe. He is going to be on the show. And before I go to break, I got to give you a tribute to my old friend, the guy I worked with for a few years on NBA TNT. I was a sideline reporter. Craig Sager, as you know, passed away this week. It's a hole in my heart, and I know a lot of people out there that loved NBA and loved the way he provided some color and excitement. There he is with Greg Popovich, one of the few guys that Greg Popovich would actually talk to, as you know, in interviews. But Craig Sager is near and dear to all of us. Hey, prayers out to the family and tribute to a very, very good friend and a good man. Stay tuned. Welcome back, Crescent City, and that is Ephraim E.T. Towns from the Dirty Dozen Brass Band. Hey, I can't wait for my next guest. You know, I've said it many times as a kid growing up here in New Orleans. Well, there was the Saints, the New Orleans Jazz, and then the Tulane Green Wave. They all were playing locally. And, of course, LSU kind of became an acquired taste for me after going to college there. But I got to tell you, growing up as a Tulane fan, we lived and died with how the Greenies did every Saturday night. And now I have their latest head coach, Willie Fritz. We had him on back, remember, right after the spring practice back in May. and now after a first full season and after a full year of being in New Orleans, welcome back, sir.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
My first question, I got to bring it up. You've been here a full year, literally pretty much almost to the day, I would imagine. What's it been like for you?
Well, it's been a whirlwind. You know, I'm just now starting to learn about the city a little bit. I've been working hard, and my wife and I are empty nesters, so we're starting to experience New Orleans and getting out and about and really enjoying it, the city and the people in the city.
Well, I had a smirk only because when I moved back home after being away for a long time, and after a year, I look like this. When I got here, I look like you. How are you staying off the food? I guess because I missed it so much, I just gained it and I can't lose it.
No, it's that has been difficult. I work out quite a bit. I'm a big runner, and I enjoy doing that, but it's fabulous food.
Hey, away from football, because we're going to get into that, what are some things that you're able to do to get your mind off football, you know, in New Orleans? I mean, what do you and your wife do? Do y'all go to restaurants? You go to plays? What do y'all do?
You know, there's not a whole lot of time off, to be honest with you. Kind of when I do have time off, I just kind of sit and relax. Had a good weekend. I watched a lot of football. It's the first time I was really able to do that. And, you know, I really just spend time with my family when I have time off. And then sometimes we'll go down to the city and go to a different restaurant here and there. Nice. And we're still wanting to, you know, see some parts of the city that we haven't seen as much as this summer. We got out and about and went to City Park and some other areas of the city. I'm still waiting to go to the World War II Museum. I'm a big history buff.
Oh, me too.
And we've been talking about doing that. But there's a lot of things to do here in New Orleans. That's one of the things we sell with the recruits when we're visiting with them.
Believe it or not, that World War II Museum, I mean, I lived in D.C. for a long time, so I've seen everything up there. That's one of the most memorable experiences you're going to have here. And I actually been immersing myself into it recently, so I'm high on it. But you actually, one of the things you should be able to sell is that you're in the most beautiful neighborhood in the world, I think. I mean, when you go down St. Charles Avenue with the majestic oak trees, you have two-lane, if depending on which way you're coming from, on the left. You have Audubon Park on the right. It is absolutely gorgeous. When kids come through as recruits, that's one of the things you have to be like, hey, look where we're going to school.
Yeah, that's the big thing we're selling. You know, we're number one is the opportunity to get a world-class education. You know, there's 4,800 colleges and universities in the United States. We're the 39th ranked school academically, so it's very difficult to play Division I football and be able to get this type of education. You know, the second thing we're really selling is the opportunity to play big-time Division I football. It's only 128 schools that play Division I football in the United States, and the American is an outstanding conference. And then you get to do those two things in the iconic city of New Orleans. So that's what we're selling to recruits.
I have a picture of you in the locker room. It's one of my favorites of the year, literally for New Orleans, anything. And the happiness and joy on your face in this picture, tell us what was going through your mind right there.
Well, we get a W, you know, we celebrate. You know, we all work so hard, the players, coaches, managers, trainers, everybody affiliated with the program. And when we win, we want to celebrate and have fun and enjoy ourselves. We get a little silly in the locker room. I've been a head coach now for 24 years, so we've got a little tradition that we do in the locker room after a W.
I know Sherman Beatty had some injuries this year, but when I looked at the running back stats, you have three guys that actually equal over 2,000 yards. You know, in a running offense. I don't hate to say that because your offense is dictated to what you're playing against. But talk about having that leadership that you had at that position. You know, the guys like Dontrell Hilliard, Lezedrick Thompson, of course, Josh Rounds, and Sherman Beatty coming into the season.
Yeah, you know, that's probably one of our deeper positions. You know, to run the ball, pass the ball, takes the whole offensive unit. And, you know, that's something we got to get better at is doing a better job with our front, you know, blocking, creating more seams and holes. I think we were 21st ranked rushing offense in the country, but we certainly got to get a lot better throwing the football, and that's something that we're going to accent here in the spring. But all four of those guys did a good job running the ball.
Speaking of, Glenn Kuliak emerged, and he ended up playing most of the season at quarterback. You do have another young guy coming in, a guy that's been to Kansas State. He's been transferred. He's had some JUCO experience as well. Jonathan Banks, I believe his name is. I produced Big 12 games, so I'm familiar with him very much. This is a guy with a lot of talent. Talk about the quarterback battle coming into the spring.
Well, we're going to have a battle certainly between, Glenn got a lot of experience this spring, and this fall and also this spring, and did a good job. Really played well our last ball game against Connecticut. Jonathan Brantley started a game for us and played quite a bit also. He'll be a sophomore coming in. Then Jonathan Banks was just playing at Independence Community College, and before that he's at Kansas State. And it's difficult for us to get junior college transfers. They've got to be a qualifier coming out of high school, and he was good high school student, and he'll come in and provide a bunch of competition. So it's going to be wide open in the spring, just like it will be at all positions for us.
Yeah, and if you follow stuff like Rivals and Scout, he's one of these highly ranked guys, but they have to perform, obviously, in practice to get on the field. Hey, tell me, you mentioned something that struck me, because this is an academic institution. You do have different issues that, say, a state school might have in getting a player not only to be on the team, but into school. Talk about the trials you have going through that kind of thing.
Well, really, we look at it as an advantage. When I talk to kids about, making a 40-year decision, not a 4-year decision. We're a national university. We've got all 50 states represented, 37 countries represented. So this degree is going to help you no matter where you live in the country or the world, for that matter. So, there are some stipulations, but obviously we want to get kids who have a chance, not only to play Division I football at a high level, but also can compete in the classroom.
Your recruiting base, because Tulane is a national school, like you said, all 50 states are represented. You've coached in Georgia at Georgia Southern. You were obviously in Texas with Sam Houston. You spent some time in the Midwest. Where's your recruiting base? Where do you feel solid? I know you know coaches everywhere.
Yeah, number one, state of Louisiana, New Orleans area. We're always going to try to get the top athletes in those different areas. And then you just kind of go east and west and north. And there's great football in the state of Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida Panhandle. We'll even get up to Arkansas and Tennessee as well. So, I do think that kids are happier when they're within a driving distance. And we're also looking for cities that have direct flights into New Orleans. But we're going to center our recruiting in New Orleans and Louisiana and then branch out from there.
It's interesting because Tulane always seems to have some guys go to the NFL you don't expect to do. Oh, last night you're watching Rob Kelly starting and playing. You got some prospects this season as well. Tanzel Smart, he's dynamic. But I got to ask you about a guy. I remember talking to you vividly about him in May. He's hard not to love. Nico Marley, the linebacker. And I'm not talking about his NFL prospects. It's just about what he's like as a human being. Because, listen, he wears number 2 now for his dad, Rowan Marley, who played linebacker at Miami. Obviously, his grandfather is the great Bob Marley. But this is a guy that's special in a lot of ways.
No, he really is. He's one of the smartest football players that I've ever coached. I've been coaching for 30-plus years. Just very instinctive player, but he can read things. Kind of a funny story. I got a buddy who coaches at Houston, and Nico was calling out the plays, and he told my friend on the Houston staff, told the guys, hey, if you don't get the signal and you're not sure what the play call is, just listen to number 2 out there. He'll call it out for you. And he did it in about 5 or 6 plays during that ball game. So just a really, really good football player. And, he's not the biggest guy in the world, not the fastest guy in the world, but unbelievably productive for us.
He's got good energy, too. He brings a vibe to everybody. Everybody seems to gravitate to him.
Yeah, he really does. He's one of those guys that just has a passion for playing football, and that's what you're looking for. We're really trying hard to get him in an NFL camp and give him an opportunity to see if he can continue to keep playing. He's made a believer out of me. I know when I took the job and I saw his dimensions,
You told me that. You told me that.
Wait a second. This guy's, 5'8", 195 pounds, and how good of a player is he really going to be? And he just, when he was healthy, there was a couple games in there, he sprained his ankle, and he wasn't as healthy as he needed to be. But other than those games, he dominated during the course of the season, and he's definitely made a believer out of our whole staff.
Well, you can't teach this right here, and that's hard. This guy's got it. Hey, we're all rooting for him because I asked a couple people that are close to your program, and they're like, I'm not sure he's going to be in the NFL, but I ain't betting against this guy. And that kind of sums it up. But speaking of NFL, you do have a guy, Tanzel Smart, that obviously is perceived to be a big-time prospect. Talk about what he provided to this team.
Well, he's another guy. You know, he's a lot different than Nico. He's not as doesn't talk quite as much as Nico does.
He's a little bigger.
And he just is one of the has maybe the strongest work ethic of any
right
football player that I've had. Yeah, jersey number 77. We're going to miss him. Just every Monday I would go out, and from my office I've got a little patio area, and when I talk on the phone I like to walk around a little bit, and I'll be making recruiting calls, and he's out there by himself, 6, 7 o'clock at night, working on the sled, doing some different footwork drills. Oftentimes I'll go in and get on the treadmill in the evening, and lights will all be off, and I'll look, and he'll be in the corner working out. Just
that's impressive.
Unbelievable work ethic, and I really feel like he's got a good opportunity to get drafted according to all the NFL scouts and people that I talk to. He's already been selected for the Senior Bowl, which is a tough bowl to get into.
No, it really is, yes.
And then I think he's going to be in the combine, and hopefully he's going to be picked high.
I know NFL execs love it when you tell them that story, because those little things sometimes are things that tip. I mean, this guy eats and drinks and loves football. Hey, another guy that has eligibility at Tulane, but there have been talks about him. Maybe he's got NFL talent. We can't deny that. His name's Perry Nickerson. He's fun to watch, 17. I remember when he was the young guy with Derry Monroe and all these other guys, and now he's one of the upperclassmen guys and a superstar, in my opinion.
Yeah, really had a great season for us. He made second team all-conference, one of the national leaders in passes broken up, and also interception return yardage. If a guy's got an opportunity, I go ahead and tell them to submit their name into the NFL advisory committee, and they kind of look at guys and see if they have an opportunity to get drafted or not. And Perry's decided to come back and going to be playing for us, so we're very excited about him coming back for his senior year and even improving more on the 2016 season that he had in 2017. But he's a great player for us. All
right, I'm going to throw this out there because Keaton Thompson, obviously one of the top 200 players in the country going to Mississippi State, was on the show last week. He said, Scott, all of our teammates and friends of mine on other teams watch the show. So if you're looking at that camera and you want to tell the recruit, hey, why Tulane over another school, give them your pitch.
Well, I kind of said it earlier, the opportunity to get a world-class education, first and foremost.
Yes.
There's a degree that can follow you for the next 40 years of your life. Then the American Conference, I don't know if you knew it or not, but we're the 5th-ranked conference.
Strong conference, yes.
America, we passed the Big 12.
Wow.
In the last rankings of conferences. So it's an excellent conference. Came this close to having really 5 teams ranked in the final top 25 in the country. And so you get an opportunity to play big-time Division I football, and then you get to do it all in New Orleans. As you said before, unbelievable campus. We're located, almost a mile by a mile campus radius, and our kids love going to school there. And then, you can jump on the streetcar and run down the French Quarter, and there's a lot of things to do right around our campus. So it's a neat experience. I always ask our guys, I have exit interviews with all the guys in Maine, kind of see where they're at. And the final question I always ask them, hey, do you like going to school here? And to a man, I always get, Coach, I love going to school here. Why wouldn't you?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I grew up a Tulane fan, and I'm an equal opportunity employer between Tulane and LSU, meaning I love them both. I know some people out there, you can't like them both. It's like Duke and Carolina. No, I love them both, and I wish them both the success. And I wish it for you, Coach. You're doing things the right way, and I appreciate you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Tulane Greenway, get behind them. They are your local football team right here in the city of New Orleans. I want to thank Coach Willie Fritz. Hey, we got a couple things coming up. I've got one of the big restaurateurs in town. Remember I had Dickie Brennan on a few weeks ago? We've got another one coming up later in the show. But next, I've got 2 of my favorites in town. 2 guys that are my go-to guys, have been that way since I was with ESPN doing radio shows. One of them is with WWL. The other is with WDSU. They may compete that way, but they both like each other. They're going to be great. We're going to have them both together. Lyons, Yellin, and Fletcher Mackel next, right here on Primetime Sports, talking Saints, Pelicans, LSU, Tulane, everything under the sun. Right here. Stay tuned.
The mark of Legacy Kitchen is simple. We offer numerous dishes like chicken enchilada soup, prime filet and loaded baked potatoes, baby back ribs, and so much more. At Legacy Kitchen, we serve American fare. crafted cocktails, and we offer a great selection of wines by the glass. Metairie at Betts and Martin Berman, and in the Warehouse District at Chapatulas and Girard.
I burned for health.
For never being big again.
I burned for my family.
For my 10th high school reunion.
For swimsuit season. I burned for myself. Orange Theory Fitness. Keep burning.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Welcome back, Crescent City. And I want to thank Willie Fritz, the head coach for the Tulane Green Wave, for stopping by. Also, I want to give a big get well soon to Mason Katz, the former LSU baseball star, now with the Cardinals organization. Hope you get well, buddy. He was supposed to be on this show. And then you just heard the great sounds from Big Sam, from Big Sam's Funky Nation. Hey, my next two guests wasn't planned this way, but we decided to combine because when I had the radio show at ESPN, even before that, well, I had two guys. When I needed a great interview, I would call, and they're both here together, so I'm excited. This is my Christmas. I've got Lyons Yellin from WLAE-TV and my man Fletcher Mackel from WDSU. Good to see you. How you guys? Happy holidays.
Yeah.
I was going to shake your hand.
Yeah.
I know I went for you first.
I need to shake his hand because he I tried to slap him down a little bit on Twitter, and I was wrong. And then he gave it back to me as he should have about the Saints still being alive for the playoffs. However,
he gave you a backhand.
It was all in good fun. I need to pat him on the back, literally. So get that out of the way.
There are some in the media that it isn't always good and fun.
It was good.
We'll stay off that. I've got my holiday jacket. You've got your holiday pants.
That's right.
Fletcher wore his 1996 Atlanta back when he was on that baseball team, the exhibition.
That was one of the last years of baseball. No, 2000 was the last year.
Actually, because
was it?
They did the exhibition in Atlanta.
Okay.
I was there doing produced basketball.
I went to the Olympics in 96. I was in college. Bertman coached the team. Warren Morris, Jason Williams was the shortstop on that team in 96. And then in 2000,
stand corrected. You're right, because they did in '84 at Will Clark. And
Right. And so, but 96, 2000 was the last year with Sheets.
Right.
2000, and they're bringing baseball back now. But actually, I said this earlier. My wife has covered 2 Olympic games. She went to London and Sochi, and my brother got to cover the games in Rio. So I have a lot of Olympic swag.
I got to tell you, your brother, who is his twin brother, if you're from New Orleans, you probably know this already, Travers and Fletcher, did a phenomenal job in Rio. Mm-hmm. Literally, I was going to him more than anything national. So, hey, we got, with you two, this is going to go fast. We got about 20-plus minutes. Let's just jump into it. Saints. We've seen this before in 03 and 07, not with the Saints, but LSU. So many things had to happen for them to get to the national championship game. We know this is probably not going to happen with the Saints, but after they played on Sunday, they had to have 10 things happen. Well, what happened on Sunday night? The Bucks, they lost to, obviously, their game against the Cowboys. And then last night, we had a loss with the Skins. They had to lose, and they lost to Carolina. There's 8 more to go. Is there any hope? I'll start with you.
No. I mean, seriously, there's not any hope. Although I will say this, I was telling Lyons about this when we got here. In 2004, I remember Jim Haslett's team, they were 4-8.
Right.
They needed to win out and have about 10 things happen. They won out and got to 8-8, and they had 9 of 10 things happen. Jim Haslett invited the media into the locker room once they won and went 8-8 to see the final thing happen, and it didn't, and they missed the playoffs. Because I remember Has famously said, he goes, if we'd have gotten in, we'd have gone up to Green Bay and kick the Packers' butt, which I don't think would have happened. But nonetheless, they almost got in 04.
So you're saying there's a chance?
No, there's no chance.
Yeah, it's funny. Everything is unprecedented in sports until it happens. So, there's a lot that has to fall into place. The dominoes will have to continue to knock one another over. But I agree with you. I don't think that's going to happen.
When there was a chance, a few weeks ago, they put 49 on the Rams, and the Rams are playing very poorly now. But before that game, they were only giving up a couple touchdowns a game. They looked great. People were excited. And then you had 2 consecutive losses. And then before this week's game, when they put another 48 up, you heard all rumors about, man, the fan base is not giving this front office and coaching staff any more breaks, it seems. If you follow any of the blogs and people writing on the message boards, what's your take on the future of Sean Payton? I'm going to start with you, and y'all can just have a conversation.
Well, I mean, I think Sean Payton is going to be the coach around here, at least for the next few years. I mean, he has a brand new contract. I don't think there's going to be any changes in the front office, and they've made some good moves this year. I think the Rankins pick, you see Delvin Breaux last year, building up these linebackers, Craig Robinson, Nate Stupar, those guys have really helped bolster this defense. It's just been a matter of keeping everybody healthy. Michael Thomas on the offensive side of the ball. This offseason will have to be dedicated to the offensive line and rebuilding that side of the ball.
Well, when they had the 8th loss, I'm going to say this because I'm going to bring you up. I was watching your show, and they went 5-8, and you were talking to somebody like, well, the Saints will probably win the next 3 games because that's what they do.
Yeah.
They won their first to give them just enough to have a bad draft pick.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what they do. Look, Drew Brees and Sean Payton. Sean Payton's an offensive innovator, and Drew Brees is going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. They'll never be 5-11. I don't think they'll ever be 6-10. I mean, to me, 7-9 is the absolute low water mark for these two because they're so good. But you asked about the future of Sean Payton. I agree with Lyons. I think Sean Payton's coaching the Saints in 2017. But I do think we're going to continue to hear of the restlessness on Airline Drive because we're headed for a 3rd straight non-winning season, non-playoff season. And when you're the highest paid head coach in the NFL, along with Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll, and you have an owner who's going to be 90 years old, I mean, look, they're wasting some great years of Drew Brees' career because they can't play consistently and put it together. And that's the most frustrating thing for me is because you see a team that can win on any given Sunday. And you see pieces in place, but for the last 3 years, they've just been so ridiculously inconsistent. And that's frustrating because you know they have talent, and you see, yes, they can get there, but I don't know.
Well,
it's tough.
That's what got to me after they lost that 8th game, and I tweeted out, this is what you get when you have the highest paid coach in the NFL. Like the Saints have to be prepared to play each week, and I haven't seen that fire from this team week in and week out. They're very up and down.
The Detroit game was very disappointing.
And another thing is depth, and that's where you have to look at the front office.
Sure.
The Saints have had 16 less draft picks than the Patriots over the last 10 years, and that's insane when you think about it. You're going to hit, you're going to miss on some of these guys, but if you have more draft picks, if you accumulate draft picks and build them up, the likelihood of having the kind of depth that you need to sustain a winning team is far more likely.
And it's not just the less picks that they have, it's the missed picks. I mean,
Right.
you look at the 2014 draft, how bad it was. I mean, within a year, every player but Brandon Cooks was cut. I mean, the Stanley Jean-Baptiste
Right.
and the Kyrie Forts and the Vinny Sinceris. I mean, they've missed on a lot of high draft picks and free agents. And I did a column last week. Look, I know Sean Payton's a great coach. I know that there will be a statue of him erected in Champion Square or around Poydras,
Sure.
and rightfully so, because of what he was able to do here. But I alluded to the fact that Andy Reid was a great coach in Philadelphia, went to a Super Bowl, 5 NFC championship games, but at the end in Philadelphia, the message wasn't being heard and the decision-making wasn't as sharp. And I think that it was probably a good thing that Philadelphia and Andy Reid parted ways. Andy Reid has gone on to Kansas City and is having tremendous success in Kansas City. I'm not saying I want Sean Payton to go, because I don't. I would like him to have more success in New Orleans, but it does, weigh on my mind. Would he be better and would the Saints be better if they both got a fresh start someplace else? If Payton went to, say, the Los Angeles Rams with a young quarterback and his message was fresh and new, and if the Saints and Mickey Loomis could pick another head coach to maybe have a clearer voice or a different path, I do wonder about the unknown, how that would work out, and could that potentially benefit both sides. Not that I'm lobbying for it, because, again, I think Sean Payton is an amazing coach, but it is something I do think is worth a discussion.
Hey, I got to bring this up because last season, I remember being at a Saints Sunday night game against the Cowboys. I remember I usually sit up in the press box, but this particular game, second half, I went down near the field. I had a friend that had seats literally behind the Saints bench. And there was a moment that struck me, and it came up again this Sunday. Kyrie Robinson got a short touchdown in that game, and he got on a roll, and he was vulturing a lot of Mark Ingram's touchdowns. And Ingram and Peyton were face-to-face, and they were yelling at each other. It didn't get a whole lot of play nationally, but on Sunday we all saw what happened. Ingram got the ball down on this play, got them down to the goal line, and then he was called out of the game to bring in Tim Hightower, former Arizona Cardinal. I'm not saying that's why he got brought in, but once again, a guy taking away his stats and numbers. We've already heard the talk about Brandon Cooks earlier in the season when they won a game and he didn't get any touches, and now this happens again. Is there too much selfishness on the team, and y'all just take this away?
I don't think so. Ingram's a competitive guy. He was like this at Alabama. And look, when you're a workhorse, when you're getting, moving the ball down the field and carrying it and being tough, and he'd average for a 5-game stretch over 8 yards a carry, you want to push it in. I mean, that's just a competitive nature. So when you're taken out of the game when you get that close, of course,
but
you're going to react.
Publicly,
but to do it publicly,
right.
yeah, to do it publicly, probably not the best thing, but to see that competitive fire, that's something that was missing from this team for a while.
Yeah, look, I agree with Lyons. I like Mark Ingram. I'm a Mark Ingram guy. And I know he's had ups and downs here, but I feel like Mark Ingram is always a stand-up guy. Good, bad, he always meets the media. He always accepts responsibility. His teammates love him. I love the fire and the passion that he plays with. I understand. It came across as selfish. I don't necessarily know if he felt like it was, you're taking stats away from me. I just felt like he probably looked at it as, I want to stay in the game. Right. I'm rolling right now. I want to go. I do have a little bit more of a problem with the Brandon Cooks issue because Mark Ingram's, I feel like, was in the moment. Right. A passionate moment that got away from him just kind of in the flow of the game. Cooks' situation, I felt like, was a little bit more premeditated with he and his agent and maybe some of the people in his ear. That one I felt like was a little uncalled for because that just felt like something that was thought out and planned, whereas Ingram's I felt like was more in the moment.
Yeah, and I remember it reminded me that Cooks thing is I used to cover the Braves, and I remember being in the locker room against the Giants, and the Braves had just whipped them, but Barry Bonds had gone 4 for 4, and you had acted like they'd won a playoff game the way he was acting, and his teammates were taken aback, and they're like, well, we're used to this. He doesn't care. He cares about his stats, and I know Cooks is not that guy, but that just made me think about it.
Well, you know what's interesting is this goes to show you maybe a little bit of a disconnect between Sean Payton and some of his players, and not realizing when a guy's winning. This has been a criticism I've had of him and a number of others for a long time. Is it sometimes he doesn't quite see the bigger picture with some of his players. And look, you've got to be aware of those little things. The best head coaches, the Nick Sabans, the Bill Belichick's, they're aware of those little things and how to get the best out of their players. And I think in a moment like that, you want Mark Ingram in the game. You have to consider that.
And he's a little bit fragile. Let me say this. I love Mark Ingram as well, and I'm going to give Peyton credit for one thing. That could have really elevated.
Yes.
He diffused it.
Yeah. I agree.
And
I think he knows, and that's one of the things where I think he understands Mark Ingram and his passion. I mean, you see Mark Ingram after a hard run get up. I mean, he got called for a delay of game because he spiked the ball once this year. He's a passionate player, and I think Sean Payton understood he wants, and I like that passion that he wants to stay in the game. I don't like the way it unfolded because it made him look selfish, and I certainly don't think he's a selfish player. I don't like the way Mark Ingram looked because I like Mark Ingram, and I think he's a team-first guy. But I do give Payton a lot of credit for not yelling back at him and kind of calming him down and diffusing the situation. I agree with you.
And I want to stay on this very short, but we brought up Drew Brees off air. He's about to get 5,000 yards for the 5th time. He actually could have probably had it 8 times. He was so close. No other quarterback's ever had it 1 time. What is this guy, and let's keep this brief, I mean, what does this really mean? We know the Super Bowl. We know, but is he just unbelievably too good to be true for this city? Think about it.
He's one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And it's like I was telling you guys earlier, and I'll credit my cousin Jeff Yellin for this. He sent me a stat yesterday. Drew Brees has more touchdowns than combined the next 4 guys, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th all time in Saints history.
Brooks, Manning,
Everett, and
Hebert.
Hebert. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, look, I'll say this. We know how great Drew Brees is. We know what he's meant on the field, in this community. He's the greatest athlete in the history of New Orleans, and he's going to be remembered even more fondly when history remembers Drew Brees.
Absolutely.
Like, we know how great he is now, but historically, we're going to look back, and it's going to be jaw-dropping. And I'll say this. part of Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton's legacy is going to be wasting some great years of Drew Brees because not many coaches and general managers have the opportunity to have a quarterback that can do what he do, that can operate an offense the way he does and put up the numbers the way he does, and to squander some truly amazing years of one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. It's going to be worse than what the Dolphins did with Dan Marino, never being able to put the pieces around him. You're talking 3 years of amazing numbers for Drew Brees that have been squandered by this organization.
This is why I need an hour for you, too, because I have so much to get to. And I got to get to this because I think it's interesting, and this is the topic du jour. And I really think this is going to be an avalanche. And obviously Leonard Fournette last week decided he's not going to play. And we're all like, okay, he's been injured all year. He seemed like he got re-injured 4 or 5 times. He's limped around campus. But yesterday, Billy McCaffrey, whose dad Christian McCaffrey. Billy's the guy I played hoops against one time. He played for Duke. But, he's got athletes in his entire family. And when he decided, this is the one that was the eye-opener because, listen, his dad was in the NFL with the Broncos and Giants. He's got even his grandfather was a superstar. His mom was and when he decided to step out, I think it opened people's eyes. They're like, wow, no injury really? He got hurt early in the year, but he had a phenomenal second half of the season. What are your thoughts about this and the floodgates that could open? Because, listen, it's not just bowl games. What if you're hurt earlier in the year and then your team has 2 losses and all of a sudden that's the Pandora's box, I'm afraid. You might say, hey, we have no chance to win a title anymore. I'm sitting out the rest of the 9 games.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. I'll say that. I don't have a problem with it. I'm for Leonard Fournette sitting out. I'm for Christian McCaffrey sitting out. That's just my personal opinion. If their teams were competing for a championship, I would say they're making the wrong decision. They're being selfish. But look, all bowl games now, I love the Sugar Bowl. I love the New Orleans Bowl. All bowl games now are meaningless exhibitions except for the playoff series. If somebody on Alabama did this, if Reuben Foster did this, I'd have a big problem with it. Because you're supposed to compete,
might too.
But you're supposed to compete for a team championship. That's the most important thing. If your team's in the playoff and you're doing something like this, I'd have a problem. But in all honesty, these bowl games now, they benefit the NCAA, they benefit the school, they benefit the TV networks. It doesn't benefit Leonard Fournette, who's going to cash in on tens of millions of dollars in a few months. It doesn't benefit Christian McCaffrey. And I look at what their players and their teammates and their coaches are saying about them. The people at LSU, the people at Stanford don't have a problem with this, so I don't have a problem with this.
I couldn't say it any better. I mean, if Leonard Fournette, if LSU was playing for a championship right now,
without question,
he would suit up. He would do everything. Even if he was only at 50%, he would do whatever he could to help his team. He'd be dressed out. He'd be on the sidelines cheering them on. But it's understandable. Look, this kid has given LSU everything he's had for the last couple of years. And it is well within his right to look out for his future and the future of his family. And there will be some balance because as soon as some player decides to sit out and his stock falls because of it, well, things will the pendulum will swing.
And this is such a small group you're going to see. I think it's going to happen every year now. But
will.
Most guys need to play to elevate their status from second round to first round or from third round to second round. Fournette's a surefire top 10 pick. He's proven everything he's going to prove. McCaffrey is probably a mid to late first round draft pick. He's really not going to go up. The only thing he can do is get hurt and fall. So you're talking about a couple of guys every year, and I do think it'll probably happen. But I don't have
more of an anomaly.
I don't have a problem with it.
All right. Let's talk about it. Speaking of LSU, they're about to play against the most dynamic player I've seen in a long time. Listen, I watched Lamar Jackson play from day one, and I was taping games when I had to be on the road. That's how good he is, and I don't do that. Are they going to be able to stop this guy?
Probably. I think so. Look, I think LSU's defense with Dave Aranda has some great players. And I think this is, the unstoppable force in Lamar Jackson meets the immovable object in the LSU defense. So I think it's one of the better bowl game matchups because of that offense.
Look at this one. That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
I was watching that live.
Now, are they going to stop him? No. Can they slow him down enough to maybe win the game? Potentially.
What a matchup. Petrino and Aranda, matching wits head-to-head. Lamar Jackson, this LSU defense, which I think has more speed than probably any other defense in the country except Alabama. I mean, and those two are pretty close. But I think they're going to give Lamar Jackson a whole lot of trouble. I don't think he's seen a defense with that much speed, that much size.
Right. I agree.
As a whole.
Well, there's no doubt. They did whip up on a pretty good defense in Florida State. I think they put 60-something up. But this, I think, is even a whole new ball game.
Yes.
Before I go, I got to get into the championship. Alabama, speaking of unmovable object. I mean, this team has proven time and again they face a different kind of offense. They don't have many great quarterbacks in the SEC. I think Jake Browning would be considered a great quarterback. We all know what Bama does, particularly when they have time to prepare. You're an alum. I'll start with you first. Jonathan Allen. It goes on. Reuben Foster. Tim Williams. We could just go on and
Humphreys.
on. Minka,
Tomlinson.
Fitzpatrick.
I mean, it's
unfair what they have. Can anybody beat them? And let's start with the first game they have to play.
Can anyone beat them? Yes. They can beat themselves, number one, and I think Ohio State has a great shot. But I think Washington is going to find that it's just completely overmatched. They've never seen a defense like this with the speed, the size, the strength, and then you look at Jalen Hurts, who is anything but a freshman. The kid is absolutely fantastic, and when you got a guy like Bo Scarborough and then the receivers on the, I mean, it's just going to be an absolute annihilation.
Yeah, look, I like Washington and I like Browning. I remember a few years ago when he was the 4th or 5th best quarterback coming out, and I think he's underrated because we don't see enough of him because he plays in the Pacific Northwest, all the way up there in Seattle. But this defense that Alabama has, I think this is Nick Saban's greatest defense.
No, I agree.
When you're talking about a half a dozen guys that are going to go in the first half of the first round of the NFL, I don't know how anybody scores on that defense. I think Bama's going to win the national championship. I do think Ohio State is their biggest, in the national championship game. That could be a close game that the Buckeyes win, but I don't see how anybody beats this defense.
Put this into perspective. Todd McShay's big board has Jamal Adams and Leonard Fournette in the top 7. He has 6 Alabama players in the top 16 drafted.
Right.
That is unprecedented.
Right. 5 defensive guys, too.
Yeah.
It takes you back to that to back in 2009 when you had guys like Marcel Darius and Mark Ingram, Trent Richardson. I mean, you had so many guys on that team. McLean. But this is even better.
Before I go, because I got 2 minutes, I want to get Clemson and Ohio State. That's, to me, a dream matchup. I mean, you got 2 teams that are pretty evenly matched, in my opinion. 2 dynamic quarterbacks. I think Clemson has a slew of wide receivers, so they can spread around. And they gave Bama a tough time in the title game. I think I watched it with you last year, actually. So Ohio State beat Alabama 2 years ago. Different players, I understand that, but with Urban Meyer, you never know. So let's start with you. Talk about this game, and if they can beat Alabama, why? If one of the 2 teams can beat Alabama, but who's going to win this game?
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to win this game. Clemson, I think, has been there, done that. I like Deshaun Watson. But they've struggled this year. They don't seem to have been able to find their footing and just roll over teams like they did last year when everybody, I think, knew Clemson and Bama were going to meet in the national championship game. I like Ohio State. I think Urban Meyer's team has a ridiculous amount of talent as well. And there's just something about Ohio State that I like. I think it's going to be Ohio State and Alabama. But in the end, I really just don't know if anybody beats the Crimson Tide. I don't know how you could possibly pick against them with the body of work they have this year.
I'll agree with you about the Ohio State-Clemson matchup. I think the wild card is Deshaun Watson.
Right, because he had some crazy big games.
Yes, right? but they have been a little bit off this year. But Deshaun Watson, in my opinion, is the next great NFL quarterback. Really? I am so high on this guy. I think he is going to be fantastic. And anytime you have a player that special, watch out.
Just to interject, I do not believe that.
We have different
opinions.
Hey, that's why there's chocolate and vanilla. Everybody likes something different.
Hey, well, actually, I have the owner of this restaurant coming up next, and he actually started Commander's Palace. He was over at Palace Cafe. He opened that one up. So I'm going to give this one to you.
Okay.
I'm going to give, you know what I'm going to do? How about Shea Delachey for everybody?
There we go.
Enjoy. You both are around Uptown. Enjoy that. I think you both signed the ball already. I want to thank you. Going to break, though, I have to ask you one thing. Does Ezekiel Elliott really like the Salvation Army, or did he just jump in there for show?
Hey, just stirring the pot, huh?
It was a pretty funny moment.
Hey, but congratulations to you and good health. Merry Christmas. And
appreciate
so
that,
happy
fellas.
for everything you got going on.
Thank you so much for coming on. I wasn't expecting to do you at the same time, but Mason, you did us a favor, but get well soon. Hey, that is Lyons, Yellin, WWL-TV, and, of course, Fletcher Mackel at Channel 6, WDSU. Hey, I know you're already checking them out, but they do great work. Hey, coming up next, we already had Willie Fritz. Coming up, we're going to have a restaurant tour. Paul McGoey, well, he's of Legacy Kitchen fame, New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood. He's had a couple new restaurants. One is going to be Legacy Kitchen Steak and Chop across the river that just opened, and he's got an oyster bar coming up there in the Pierre Marquette Hotel. Coming up next, right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back, Crescent City. And it's always nice to hear the Christmas sounds of my man Big Sam from Big Sam's Funky Nation. And that, of course, is this Christmas. Hey, also want to thank Coach Willie Fritz, who was on the show earlier, taking the time out there, of course, the Tulane Green Wave coach for football. And also want to thank Lyons, Yellin, and Fletcher Mackel. But hey, my next guest, he started helping his father with the Snowball Empire back when he was a little tyke into junior high. And then in college, he ended up working at a place called Fred's Bar and Grill. After that, he ran through the commander's chain all the way up to manager and then general manager and helped open Palace Cafe after Commander's Palace. And then he went into a project with one of the Brennan girls, and it was called Foodies. And then on to other projects, doing a lot of consulting. And then he helped turn around New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood, open Legacy Kitchen, a couple locations. And now he's got 2 more coming up. One is called Legacy Kitchen Steak and Chop. That's on the West Bank. That just opened recently. And we got another one coming up next week. It's an oyster place, but it's still Legacy Kitchen concept. It's going to be great. That's going to be in the CBD. His name is Paul McGoey. I told you this is a sports show, but also like to include entertainment, restaurateurs, musicians, and, of course, artists as well. Here he is, Paul McGoey.
Scott, how you
Welcome
doing, man?
Welcome to the show, man.
Great to see you.
Did you like taking it through your life?
I did. That was pretty good.
I mean, do you remember the snowball days? Tell us about it.
Not only do I remember the snowball days, I thought last night your first car accident in your maroon Oldsmobile was right in front of the snowball stand.
You had to bring that one up.
Back when you were 15, I had to do it.
Well, was that my first or was that my last?
Well, it might have been your third. Who knows?
Who knows? All right, we digress. Hey, real quick. It did start there. You're obviously your father was in that business, among others, entrepreneur. Right. Did that kind of get the seeds going for you?
It did. I was a shy kid, though, believe it or not, then when I was 10. And
I don't believe it.
But that was the start of it for sure.
And obviously, going through college, we actually did work together. And that, by the way, the most successful college bar in the history of Louisiana, I have to say, is still going. Fred's Bar and Grill in Baton Rouge.
I would say it's the most successful, and ironically, my son works there now. So that's. My world has come full circle.
It is completely. Are you that old, really?
Yes.
I think my son might be working there soon as well. How'd you get into the Commanders? Because when you get in New Orleans, that's the place that everybody's like, oh my. When you can put that on the resume, and especially the way you moved up so rapidly, I mean, that kind of opens doors for everywhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was great. I got very fortunate. Interviewed with Ella Brennan and Emeril Lagasse when he was a chef there, and I was fortunate enough for them to take me on and learned a lot from them. Really, Ella was a mentor to this day.
Well, obviously they are part of several restaurants. I mean, the son Dickie now has his name on Palace Cafe, but you were instrumental in getting that place started. I know you kind of ran it for years, not just as a manager, but as a general manager.
Yeah, we opened in 91, and it's nice when I drive by and see it still flourishing today. It's doing great.
It is doing great. I actually was there about a couple months ago. It was awesome. What gave you the idea? I know you got in the consulting business for a while. You were at Foodies. It was a little project with T. Brennan, and that was kind of like Atlanta. We had a place called Eatsies, but after that, you said, hey, I'm going to do some consulting, and all of a sudden I come back home, and you're owning a bunch of restaurants. What happened in between here?
The consulting business was great. It taught me a lot, showed me a lot of different ways how to be successful in the business, learn that it wasn't just one way to do it.
But when somebody consults, I'm just curious, what does that mean to laymen in consulting for restaurants?
I would say the biggest misconception about a restaurant from owners and customers is that people think that they have a great recipe and they can turn that into a restaurant. And a restaurant is a business just like anything else. But you got to make food every day for every customer and everyone's palate, and it's hard. It's not just like rolling out cars on the assembly line. So it's.
I remember you said that one time to me. it might have been even recently.
Right.
He said every one of these sandwiches has to taste great, and if I have one that doesn't, I'm gonna lose a customer.
It's loyal customers are loyal, but one bad experience can turn them off.
All right, Nan, what gave you the idea to start this Legacy Kitchen thing? Because what I love about the place, besides the food's fabulous, is that there seemed to be a dearth of places in between the high-end places and then, just your regular run-of-the-mill, hole-in-the-wall kind of places. And we need more places like Legacy Kitchen. Kind of give me the concept of how it started and what your goal was with it.
Legacy Kitchen is a polished, casual collection of restaurants. And to be honest with you, it's the type of restaurant I wanted to hang out in. And so, when you're doing things and things are going well, I have a great team, and our ability to create a restaurant that we all wanted to be a part of, we said, let's go do this. And it's been received incredibly well. I think of it as a lifestyle brand.
Well, it's so interesting because a lot of places are carbon copies of the original, right?
Right.
And I've noticed this is not that way. I mean, the Metairie place, the first time I went in, the food was fabulous. And then I'm like, okay, the warehouse district thing opened up, but that's a whole new, different look. It became the kind of a cool spot to hang out for people that get off work. What was your thought going into the changing of how it looks?
Well, we didn't want a chain. We have a chain in New Orleans, hamburger and seafood company. And I wanted Legacy Kitchen to be more than that. So we look at it as a collection. It has the same heartbeat as a Legacy Kitchen. They all share the same all-star dishes at each one, but it allows us to have the personality of each place in the neighborhood kind of play a role.
Chicken and waffles has been, that's the staple, right?
That's the staple.
But you have high-end steaks, you have it all, but I mean, obviously we see some tuna there, but I mean, chicken and waffles is big. Gladys Knight has a place in Atlanta. I mean, so when I saw that, I'm like, is there a lot of places doing this?
Well, Legacy Kitchen's a refined American concept. So it allowed me the ability to have a broad spectrum of menu choices from around the country. Wanted to highlight flavor profiles from everywhere.
I know some Southwest dishes as well. Hey, the place across the river, okay? Right. You said you different concepts for different with the Legacy Kitchen name.
Right.
The steak and chop, and you have one of the great chefs in New Orleans history. So
Robert Bruce joined our team. He and I worked together at Palace Cafe, believe it or not, in about '93. And he is our executive chef and culinary director now, and he's awesome. Brings an energy to work every day that's just unrivaled.
For the person that hasn't been that's only been, say, the Warehouse District or Metairie, what separates this? What is the difference?
Steak and Chop is really a combination of a prime steakhouse and a polished casual restaurant. So chicken and waffles club sandwich and a bone-in filet or pecan smoked rib.
What is that one right there? Because that one looks pretty darn good.
That's the pecan smoked bone-in filet, and it's a stunner. It's great.
It looks pretty darn good.
Yes.
You have something new happen. I mean, this thing is moving rapidly away a little bit from the steak concept. You got something in the CBD coming up. What is this?
In the CBD, we're opening in the Pierre Marquette Hotel next week. It's called Legacy Kitchen's Oyster Counter and Tap Room. So it's going to be casual, all-star dishes from Legacy.
Did you get Bradley Cooper to fit in this picture?
all-star Legacy dishes, and then we'll have a full oyster bar. We'll have a coffee and beignet shop as well, featuring our New Orleans Coffee and Beignet Company. So we're really excited. Next week.
That's next week.
That's next
week. All right. Post-Christmas, let's get after
That's
it.
right.
And obviously, this is a coffee and beignet place that you also have. You've expanded rapidly, but let's talk some sports here. I'm interested.
Cool.
All right. I grew up a Tulane football fan, Tulane basketball fan. I grew up uptown as you did. I loved it. I went to LSU. I didn't change any allegiance. I just added to it. And I became an LSU fan and a Tulane fan. I always loved the Saints, and the Jazz were here when we were growing up as well. So I think we were fairly well-rounded. We didn't have any baseball except for a little bit of minor league. We had the New Orleans Pelican baseball team for a couple of years. But as a kid, what sports did you like? Did you follow NFL? I mean, college more. And did you like Tulane? Who'd you grow up with?
You know what? I grew up with Tulane. Lived on Calhoun and Willow by the stadium.
That's right.
Owned that stadium when we were 10 years old. Was a Tulane fan. Tulane helmet. Hated LSU.
Right. I hated them too until I went to the USC game in 1878, and I'm like, this place is pretty cool too.
You know, LSU just became a part of my life because of college, obviously.
Don't you love that they brought this Angry Wave back?
I like the Angry Wave. I had the Angry Wave. I had the T on the helmet back in '76.
Oh yeah.
So us and Tulane go way back.
Nowadays, we have teams that break our hearts like the Saints. Obviously they gave us some recent success. They may have on their way to their third straight losing season unless they can pull these last two out. But what are your allegiances now? What do you open the paper up and you look to see immediately?
Well, LSU and the Saints are my two most important right now. I'm kind of indifferent. Sports to me is entertainment. When you play, it's one thing. When you have allegiance to a school, it's another thing. But now I just enjoy watching. I think the Saints have they have the nucleus of something really good. I think that what separates them though is Super Bowl year. Our defense had a swagger to them that we've never had before, maybe in the history of the Saints. And I don't know if it's because the players that year were that much better, but they were confident. And I just haven't seen confidence in the defense in the last 4 or 5 years.
It's interesting. This year they have shown a difference. Sometimes you don't see it always in the score, but they're a lot different, I think. And they've gotten through injuries. But when you look at the team's prognosis, say, in the next few years, do you see hope or do you just see a downward slide?
I see a lot of hope. When you can score 48 points in a game and win, that's hope, right? The offense can do it. But when you give up 41 points, the offense has to score 48 to get it done, and that's tough in this league.
Hey, by the way, I just had Willie Fritz on, a great guy. I've had him on before. Tulane football, wouldn't it be great to see the resurgence? Hey, listen, I think this guy's doing it the right way. I've been to a couple practices. He is all business. He knows how to get it done. Talk about what they got in the future.
I think Tulane, with the facilities they have now and the coaches they have now, if they can own the New Orleans market, I think they're going to do nothing but go up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. LSU Tigers, they play obviously in a bowl coming up. No Leonard Fournette, and they happen to play against the most electric player that I've seen in college football in a long time, in Lamar Jackson. How do you forecast this game?
I think LSU's going to have their hands full. I haven't seen that they perform really well with dynamic quarterbacks like a Lamar Jackson. That seems to be something they struggle with.
Johnny Manziel, though, he had his worst games in his career against them.
I agree. I think we'll have our hands full, obviously. I think Coach O has them where they need to be. They're going to be fired up for sure. And I think they want to close the year with a bang.
I know it's almost impossible, but people do win the lottery at times. The Saints, after they beat the Cardinals, they needed 10 things to happen after that. Truly, 10 things had to happen. These had to lose this. Well, it happened on Sunday night. The Bucs lost. It happened on Monday night. The Skins beat the Panthers. The Panthers beat the Skins. They have 8 more. Can we dream? Can we dream that this could happen? Because 2 of those things, the Saints have to win the next 2 games, and then they got to get help from 6 other games.
It was funny. I thought about it last night. We have a 1% chance, I think, of making the playoffs.
But that's better than most people would have thought.
And who knows? Maybe we'll be the 1% chance that gets in. Drew will be dangerous. If we get in,
don't buy your playoff tickets yet, but if they do get in, I don't think anybody wants to play the Saints team.
I totally agree.
And as a Tiger graduate, I know you grew up a Saints fan by Tulane Stadium, but I'm going to get you on this LSU ball.
Cool.
And the restaurateur, you got your own gift certificates. I do appreciate you taking the time. We had Dickie Brennan on recently. I know you are close to that family. But it's always good because I love getting, we're 80% sports. And for a while we were almost 100% sports. But I love the whole facet, and I appreciate you taking the time to come in. And good luck with the new restaurant. Check out the Oyster, the Oyster Counter.
OC and Tap.
Oyster Counter and Tap, that is in the Pierre Marquette restaurant, hotel, and that should be wonderful. I'm not even sure what that is, but I will look it up, and I will be there soon. Maybe with an appetizer on the house.
There you go.
All right. Hey, by the way, I want to thank everybody. Willie Fritz, I appreciate him coming for the second time. He was back here in May, right after spring practice. And, of course, 2 of my favorites in the media here, Fletcher Mackel and Lyons Yellin. And let me do a little shout-out to Mason Katz, who was supposed to be on the show, LSU baseball star with the Cardinals now, a phenomenal young man. But get better, my man. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Hey, I'm Scott Alexander. For everybody here, I want to wish you happy holidays. My producer, Will Hill, boy, he has been working under duress and getting it done. Hey, Josh Smith. We also have Naila and the whole crew. Kenny Juneau, the Redhead Tsunami, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson. Happy holidays from all of us. Have a great Christmas to all.